everyone. You guys doing good? Can you hear me? Final sound check before we start. Carlos. All right, cool. All right, so I guess you guys never have any questions when we start. That's great. Give it 2 seconds and question starts popping in, right? All right, so yesterday we finished chapter 16. The only thing we were missing was pretty much going the income approach and the final report, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. And I asked you guys to watch the video on income approach, the video that I have on YouTube. It was shared in the Zoom. It was also shared in the WhatsApp group. So if you watched it and you have questions, drop it in the chat. If you haven't watched it, then we're going to go over in a little bit, but start lining up a few questions if you do have them. I think it was simple, easy to go through, but there's always a chance for questions to pop up. All right, I don't think there's any explanation that's 100% perfect and catered to everybody. All right. Sorry, just making sure my phone is on silent. All right, so if there's no questions, I don't see question marks coming through. So if there's no questions, I'm going to start. Actually, I want to tell you guys I just received finally the summary of changes for the new book, so the new edition. Hopefully, none of these. I mean, I've mentioned all of them already. Like a change that they finally made to the book in this chapter that we're going to go over next. I've been saying it the same way for years now, so I don't know why it wasn't changed before. But there's only a few changes, not many. Most of them I addressed as we go through the chapter, and I'll let you guys know, like the referral company versus the referral agent. So we talked about that in chapter 1. There's a few little things, very, very few, but majority of them I addressed again in the chapters as we went through. All right, so let's see what we got. We got a few questions coming through. All right. Riley says it's freezing. Anybody? No? All right, I still think it's like 90 degrees, right? Not freezing. Next we got, do we have to memorize the formula or will it be provided? Daphne, unfortunately, no formulas will ever be provided to you. You have to figure it out. The good news is that in chapter 22, thanks, Gary. In chapter 22, I'm going to give you a tool that actually takes this away from here. So you don't have to remember formulas. You just have to remember how to use the tool that I'm going to present in chapter 22. And no, it's not the calculator. You still need the calculator. But it is a way to figure out when to multiply or when to divide, which traditionally is the most complicated thing, is to figuring out should I divide or multiply things. All right? So that will be provided to you when we do math, so on Monday. All right? So we're going to go over all this, Gary. But thank you. We are going to have a written example in a little bit. I was just trying to see if there was any other questions. All right, 27 people. Let's do a quick roll call. So, Luz is not here. She only signs up later. There's Vanessa. I know you're there. I see you. There's Vanessa. There's Steven, Moses, Crystal. I see a corner of something up there, but that's it. Crystal, I don't see you. Lena, Anthony, Carlos in the car. Riley, Gary, Heather in the car. Gil, Natalie, Sandra, Joseph, Peter. Where's question mark? Daphne, where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay. Nicole in the car as well. You better be going to buy that ice cream, Nicole. You are? Okay, good. 18 Oliver Street, 3rd floor. So, Geraldine, I see you. Sabrina. No. Monica, you're out of this class already. Mina, Yosef, I see you. David, I see you. You're in a room for the next 2 minutes. I know how it is. You'll be in the car in a little bit and then outside right after. Brian, I see you. Linda. What happened to the uniform today, Linda? All right, we got who else? Talia, I see you. Chad, don't see you. Okay, I'm here. Had to fix audio. Rudy, I saw you, but now I don't see you. It's okay. All right, so that's it. Roll call done. Let's start. Nicole, Luz says in the group chat, you have to bring for everybody. You can't just ask them in the group chat. So here's the thing, because all of you eat while I'm teaching, you can bring to me and I'll eat in front of everybody. So this is, wait, it's for everybody. How about that? Payback, payback. It's karma. You guys need to understand what karma is. All right, so let's go here. Income approach. Yep. Income approach. Why do we use the income approach? So yesterday we talked about two different types of approaches. We talked about sales comparison approach and we talked about the cost approach. In the sales comparison approach, that's the one that's most commonly used by all the realtors, right? And appraisers. What is the sales comparison approach? Is looking at the market data. Properties that are similar that sold recently, right? The cost approach is because there's not too many sales, or it doesn't. This type of property does not generate income. Therefore, we have to look at the cost to replace the property, which is very similar to what is used in cars. When there's damage to a car, for us to replace, for us to fix the car, we need to look at the value of the car if you were to rebuild it, right? So that's the way it's calculated. So also the most accepted one for all types of insurance. Now, within the cost approach, we talked about reproduction cost and we talked about replacement cost. Under reproduction cost, we said, hey, we're going back to the original materials, original construction style, original everything. Where replacement cost, we're looking at something that what I called aftermarket, meaning it's not the original, but serves the same function as what the original used to do. So it's replacing for something else that has the same function. All right? And today, we're going to talk about the income approach to close out Chapter 16, Appraisals. And income approach is simple. There's not enough sales to compare to, right? And there's income in the property, so we don't need the cost approach. We might use it, we might calculate it as well. I'm going to show you that we can even use all three of them. But for this type of property, most likely the income is the best way to determine the value. So how would income determine the value? Let's look at apartment buildings. Let's look at office buildings. These are rental properties, right? So because they're rental properties, they bring income. Now, are all office buildings the same? Are all apartment buildings the same? Do they have the same amount of units? No, right? So you can have a 100-unit apartment building that's located in the, let's say, Ironbound section here. And then you have another 100-unit apartment building that's located only in the next town. So it's impossible to figure out the value, right? So we're going to look at other apartment buildings. Let's say they are 50 units instead of 100. And we figure out how much income they bring. And now you're probably thinking, but wait, 100 units is going to bring more money than 50, right? Not always. See, 100 units might have way more expenses, and also the rents could be lower than the 50 units. All right, what we're trying to figure out here is what's called like a common denominator between all of them, and that's called the capitalization rate. What do people expect to get in return for a particular type of property? And that's what income approach is going to help us determine. Once we figure out what is the common denominator between all these properties, now we look at our property, which is a 75 unit. See, we had 100 units, 50 units. Ours is a 75 unit. And that cap rate multiplied by our income, the income divided by the cap rate will give the value of my building that I'm trying to sell. All right, so we looked at other buildings that are comparable, meaning they're all income same type of income, which is rental, right? Similar commodities or amenities, and then compare to our building, what we have. So let's figure this out. Income approach assumes that the income derived from the property controls the value of the property. Now, the income capitalization approach is used for valuation of income producing properties, as I just said, apartment buildings, office buildings, shopping centers, and the like. In using the income capitalization approach to estimate value, an appraiser must go through the following steps. So step number 1 is estimate potential gross rental income. What is that? We're assuming 100% occupancy. That means full rental. All right, and that's what I have here. This right here is potential gross income. Gil, no, because special purpose properties traditionally don't bring income. That's why cost approach was the most accurate. All right? If it's an income property, now it doesn't matter what kind of property it is. You just have to compare to an equivalent type of property. All right? So 100%, this step number 1, 100% occupied. Okay? But are all buildings 100% occupied for the whole year? Or is there a possibility, that it will become vacant, or that we have to force the vacancy due to lack of payments, right? There's a possibility of vacancy. So let's say 5%. Let me show you. That's what I did here, 5% as an example. These are the losses. So you estimate, this is what I'm showing you, you estimate it being 100% occupied. That's what you would get in income, let's say $100,000. Then you, based on your experience of this current market, and meaning current market, I'm not talking about the United States, I'm talking about Newark, this section, this type of property, how often does it get vacant, and how often do people stop paying the rent? So when we're talking about this market, we're talking about where the property is located and the type of property, right? So vacancy and rent collection losses, in my example, I estimated a 5% loss. So that brings us to 95% effective gross income. What is effective gross income? And guys, you don't have to do this part yet. I will show you in a little bit the calculations. But what is effective gross income? Effective gross income is what we could actually expect from the property. If more comes in, great. If less comes in, that means you didn't do your math correctly. Does that make sense? So if we get 100% occupied, best building in the world, great. But if you get it 90% occupied, your math was wrong. The 5% estimated loss is based on experience. You guys got it? So, what is the effective gross income? What can I really expect from this property? If I was bringing $100,000 and there's a chance of a 5% loss, then the effective income, what I can count on, is $95,000. All right, and I like to explain it this way. You know your salary, but in America, most people, as you know, if you don't work, you don't get paid, right? So if you don't show up to work that day, you don't get paid, right? Some businesses have vacation days that are built in, but still, if you use it, it's one less vacation day that you can redeem at the end of the year, for instance. Some businesses carry over to the next year. Everybody's different. But let's assume that you don't go to work, you don't get paid. You got it? You expect for the whole year to make $100,000 in wages, right? So working the whole year, $100,000. But if you miss a day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and so on, it starts cutting into your full yearly salary, correct? That's the potential vacancy and rent collection losses. And everybody should have that in mind. I work and I make X amount of dollars for the whole year. But what are the odds of me getting sick? Well, based on what I've seen in the previous years, I get sick 2, 3, 4, 5 days out of the year, as an example. you understand? So you have to be ready for that. So now we reach what's called the effective gross income. It's what you can count on. What do you really make out of the property? Now, let me ask you guys. If you're an employee, right? If you're an employee, can you deduct your commute to work? Let me know in the chat. If you're an employee, can you deduct your commute to work? I think I already gave you the answer by saying commute. I said commute. Okay. No. 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 Unless your clock starts ticking, from the moment you get out of the house, which most jobs don't have that option, right? Then commuting is what? Going to work, not at work. And yes, but let's not consider this yet. Recent, not consider this yet. So we'll go with the typically no, 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 and no. All right? So if you're independent, yes, you can deduct everything and anything you can think of within means. But you can deduct a lot of stuff. So let me ask you something. If you're an employee and your time to go to work, see, my time to come up here to the school, I can deduct the travel time because it's work. From the moment I get out of the house, it's work. Does that make sense? So, but as an employee, you might not. So is that your true income? Your $15 an hour, $20 an hour, $30 an hour, $100 an hour, whatever it is that you make, is that your true income? Remember, there's days you're going to miss, and there's commute, the cost to get to that wage salary, right? You guys understand what I'm trying to say? So that's one of the reasons why your net's pretty gross. Yep. That's one of the reasons why I tell people, some people go like, I got a chance to go work in New York and make $3 more an hour. Okay, wait. How long does it take you to get into New York? And this is just an example. It takes you an hour to get into New York, right? How much you're going to spend getting into New York? Getting out of New York, it might take an hour, it might take 2 hours. You never know. So how much you're going to spend getting out? So you need to calculate all these things to see if that $3 an hour increase is worth going to work in New York, as an example. Does that make sense? That all must cut into your actual wages. Okay? So going back to the book, it's the same thing. We need to be able, step number 3, we need to be able to deduct for annual operating expenses. What is operating expense? Is the cost to keep the lights on, to have the business going. See, if you don't go to work, you don't get paid, right? And there's a cost associated with that. There's a traffic, there's the tolls, there's the gas, there's the maintenance of your car. Does that make sense? If you're independent, you can deduct most of it. If you're not independent, if you're an employee, a W-2 wage earner, then you might not be able to deduct at all. You got it? So that's part of the cost of going to work. And that's why everybody should have a side hustle where you can deduct all that stuff that you can't as an employee. All right? Let's look at what we have here. A lot of stuff in the chat I didn't even read. I have an uncle that used to work in Long Island from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m., sometimes 8 or even 9. Traffic was heavy and was making 23. The only thing, boss paid for everything. See, that's a different scenario. If he paid for the extra commute, hey, I know some people that have that arrangement with the boss. They're called essential workers for that type of business, right? So the boss will pay. I know somebody personally that the boss will pay for him the moment he wakes up to the moment he gets home. They'll pay. So yeah, you have some, but the majority of them don't. Absolutely, Heather. So when I was trying to talk about the difference in wage, yeah, you have to calculate everything, including what type of opportunity are you getting. Absolutely, 100%. Right? Some stuff forces you to move to New Jersey, right? Yep. Peter says I get paid for transportation. You could. That's what I'm saying. Some jobs do, but the majority of the jobs don't. Okay? There's always some of everything, but the majority is no. Census jobs do that. Yeah, I mean, census is a little different thing. You are commuting the whole time, so it's part of work, what you do, right? Luz, listen, I work all day, all night. You know, it's all what you're willing to do for that job, to keep that job, or to keep that profession, or to keep that business. You got to be a hard worker. I don't like it. No, I don't. I do not like it. I pretty much love it. That's what makes a difference. Okay? Right here? Absolutely. You can always negotiate everything. Unfortunately, Heather, a lot of people assume that if the job is a sorry, if the job is a $13 an hour job, a lot of people assume that's what it is. Like, done. $13 an hour, I'm gonna take it because that's what it is. No. Everything's negotiable. Got it? All right. But anyway, back to the book right here. As I was saying, it's the cost of business, like we were just discussing. So why do we need to know this? We had 100% occupied, right? 100% occupied, minus vacancy rate and rent collection losses. So let's say the days off of your job. That brings us to the 95% effective gross income, what we can actually expect. From that, we need to calculate operating expenses right there, the 20%. And that will bring us, guys, focus, and that will bring us to NOI. This is the number that you guys need right here. This is the number you guys need in every income approach. NOI. It's the net operating income. It's what you bring home after paying, after your losses and after paying operating expenses. Okay, that's what you bring home. And look, when I said 100 unit apartment building and I said 50 unit apartment building, the NOI could be even the same. The amount for the NOI could be the same. The 50 could actually have a higher NOI because the cost of operation might not be 20%, might be 5%. Do you understand? The taxes might be different. The utilities might be different. The management cost might be different. All that stuff weighs into it. The rent collections in 100 units might be different to the 50 unit, which is a luxury one. We never know. Do you understand? The key to this question, if we have a question regarding a income approach, which you will, the key is always getting to the NOI, net operating income. Without it, there's nothing you can do. Without the NOI, there's no way you can calculate anything else. Make a note of that. Without the NOI, there's no way, no guilt. Forget that. That's like, we're not there yet. Without the NOI, there's no way you can calculate income approach. Make sure you guys understand that. All right? So going back to the book, it says annual net operating income, NOI, the most important thing. All right. So Daphne is asking what's the IE? It's vacancy and rent loss. Vacancy and rent loss. Got it? She's still busy with the ice cream. Anyway. Steven's asking if it's investment expense. What? The rent collection loss? Oh, in example. Actually, the Latin words are a little different, but I just say it in example or as an example, which is easier to understand. Okay? Okay, so right here. So the annual net operating income is the number you need to get to. Okay? Now, it says here, if you guys can see it, it says that management costs are always included as operating expenses, even if you are the one managing the property. So even if you're the one managing the property, you need to attribute a value to that management, okay? Now, mortgage payments, including principal and interest, however, are debt service and are not considered operating expenses. So if there's a mortgage, I might have a mortgage, but you might not. And even if I have a mortgage, so this is a little different from the property management side of it. Even if I have a mortgage, right, you might pay 8%, I may pay 4%. So there's a lot of variables to the mortgage portion of it, okay? Not included, debt service not included in your calculations, okay? Now, once you're done with that, with the NOI, we're going to estimate the price a typical investor would pay for the income produced by this particular type of property or in class of property, right? So how do we do this? We estimate the rate of return, which is ROR, or yield, that an investor demands for the investment of capital in this type of building. This rate of return is also called cap rate or capitalization rate. Okay? Sorry. So to Gil and to Vanessa, I think I said not to overstudy either. I've mentioned it a couple times. I even said to Vanessa the other day, don't have nightmares. All right? Don't overstudy. That's also really bad. Don't understudy. Don't think like you got it or you'll do it at the end. Study a little bit every day, guys. A little bit every day, not too much. Okay? Because you already have the class itself, so review, brush up, that's all. Just keep everything fresh and you'll pass. And if you have questions, instead of overstudying, stop at where you have question and 908-418-8325. Send the message. Okay, preferably WhatsApp, because WhatsApp I can easily see the messages on the computer as well. Gil says I should know more than the class. It's sad. Not true. Yeah. Anyway. Heather, it's going to cost you $40 for that interruption. Yeah, Gil, but see, let me address this real quick, guys. It says, I've been in your class before, and I've been doing this for 3 years. Okay. Let me say something. Ready? You guys ready for this? Life happens. I don't care how long you've been doing this. I care about you doing this now. Are you going to pass? That's all I need to know. Whatever was before, whatever you think you knew, you don't need to know. You need to know now. You got it? Forget what it was. Oh, I've done this a million times and I can't pass. No, it's just life happens. So forget that. No frustration. Put it out the door. Brand new. You're here for 75 hours. You're going to knock this out the park now. Okay? There you go. Yep, Riley did too, yep. Yeah, I guess this is it. From Question Girl. All right. Let's go back to the book. All right, so we figure out that there's something called rate of return and there's a cap rate, right? What does that mean? It means that's the percentage that I'll get back every year on this property, or supposedly I'll get back every year on the property. How do we determine this percentage? Well, relationship of net operating income to the sales price of similar properties that have sold in the current market. For example, so Gary had mentioned about an actual example, so here it helps. It says a comparable property, so this 50 unit or the 100 unit, whatever, brought an annual net income, so after expenses, it brought an annual net income of $15,000. Now that property sold for $187,000. So what was the cap rate on the sale? Well, simple. 15,000 divided by the sales price, cap rate is 8%. So that's the ROR, that's the rate of return on that sale. Okay? Now, if other properties, so we're going to look at other properties, right? Because that's how comparables work. If other properties bring pretty much the same return, 8% or close to it, then it's easy for us to determine that this type of property in this type of area is expected to bring that return. Right? It's the same thing as the sales. If you guys look at it, a $300,000 house, a $320,000 house, a $290,000 house. It's not the values that they have, it's what kind of properties are they. And if the values now are similar, then we expect other properties similar to that property to bring more or less the same amount. Do you understand? So we need to look at similar types of property within the area. So let's assume that 8% is the rate that we should apply to the subject property. What is the subject property? Well, the property we're trying to appraise. Now, finally, the capitalization rate is applied to that particular property, resulting in the appraiser's estimate of property value. So let's look at an example, page 229. Right here. On page 229 says NOI divided by cap equals value. Okay? NOI divided by cap equals value. My property brings $15,000 net at the end of the year. Okay? $15,000 net, so NOI at the end of the year. If the cap rate will be determined by looking at comparables, if the cap rate was close to 8%, then 8% is the number I'm going to use. So $15,000 divided by 8% cap rate, how much is my property worth? How much would I list it for? Anywhere close to this number. You guys got it? No. 8% is not the profits that the investor will gain, because profit is based on complicated tax calculations, which we'll talk about in the next chapter. So that's not profit. It's the relationship between the income and the sales price. It's just a number that's used to figure out how much we get every year from that property, net. Now, net, not considering the mortgage. So how is that the profit? It's not, because you still have to pay mortgage. But it's the net from the operation of the building. Financial has nothing to do with the cost to operate the building. You got it? So how much we take home? We take 8% of the value every year. That's what we take home. Okay? Peter, is a high cap rate considered bad? All right, so I'm not going to dive into that, because for state exam it really does not matter. You just need to know how to do this. Simple. If you go into commercial properties, once you're out there, Peter, if you go into commercial properties, you need to know that there's two types of cap rates. There's the entry and there's the exit cap rate. The entry cap rate is for purchase. Does the numbers make sense when you purchase? And you want, of course, something that's going to be a high value. The exit cap rate, it's something that gave you that return, but it's a lower value. Difficult to explain right now. Again, not going to get into it. We're not doing commercial investments now. But if you are dealing with commercial, your broker should be experienced in commercial properties and be able to explain what's the purchase and what's the projected cap. Okay, there's the purchase cap and there's the projected cap, which is the exit cap. Okay, so different. It's already bad enough to do this. Okay. All right. So these are the formulas and the variations of the formulas. So income divided by rate equals value, income divided by value equals rate, and then value times rate equals income. We have these three variations, but I'm going to show you a tool on chapter 22 if you guys want to write chapter 22. I'll give you a tool in that chapter that addresses these three variations in that one tool. Meaning you don't have to remember formulas, you just have to know how to fill in the blanks. Okay? Which is very easy. Peter, sure, we'll talk about it at another time. Vanessa, in the question exam, are they going to give you the cap rate percentage? First of all, you don't say cap rate percentage. Rate is a percentage. So just say cap rate or say percentage. And no, they might give you, as you can see the variables here, they might give you one or the other. So they might give you the income and the rate, and you have to figure out value. They might give you the income and the value, and they have to figure out rate, and so on. They might give you 2 or 3 steps, right? Like this. Sorry. Did I put it here? No, I didn't. Okay. So they might give you the 2 or 3 steps where they give you, it's expected to bring $100,000. Based on markets, the vacancy is 25%. And then it talks about $30,000 worth of expenses. So they might give you all this for you to get to the NOI. And if the property sold for $300,000, what was the cap rate? So you would have to then divide this by the sales price to figure out the cap rate. You see what I'm saying? So these are the ways it goes. You seriously here? All right, come to the camera. Keep on walking. Straight, straight, straight. Ignore those people. There's a door. Keep on going straight, Nicole. There's a door right there. No, to your right. To your right, there's a door, white door. You're by the no, to your right, right there. There you go. Straight, straight, straight. I'm getting ice cream. Come on, right there. That door. Yep, that door.
Hello.
Hey.
Here you go.
Look at this. You can get on camera. See how they're seeing it.
Oh.
You see that?
That's so cool. All right. Nice
Thank
to meet you. You're
Same
welcome.
here. Appreciate it. All right. Your mom's in the car?
Yep.
All right. Tell her she's fired anyway.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, she says she wants the answers for the test, by the way.
That's why she's fired.
Okay, gotcha.
They think they can buy me and get the answers with this. Thank you, Nicole. Hold on. Oh, damn. All right. This is going to be a minute. I'll be back in 10 minutes, okay? I'm just kidding. It's going to melt away. Hold on. And back in the day, they used to bring apples to the teachers. What were they thinking? Ice cream is the way to go. Thanks, Kristen. All right. My business partner is like, hey, where's my ice cream? Well, you don't show up for the class. No ice cream. All right, cool. Let's see. I saw the message. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Come get your ice cream. Then I see on the screen, she's in my office. Like, what's going on? All right. No, 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 lose, no, nope. Yep. So she never missed the beat. She was still in the class while bringing the ice cream, okay? And Monica, yes, you're still fired. All right, so. Yeah, Perla, I'm gonna figure out how to do this. All right, so as I was saying, they might present you this way, all right? The next thing we got is a gross rent multiplier. Gross rent multiplier. Now, what is the GRM? Gross rent multiplier. Okay, when appraising an investment property that produces rent or income, the sales comparison approach can include, can include, doesn't mean it will, but so the sales comparison approach are the comps, right? And we can add, I told you we can combine different approaches to get a report. So the CMAs could include rental income to determine the value. Now, a GRM, similar to the cap rate structure, relates the sales price of the property to its rental income. If it's a gross monthly income, we're talking about residential. If it's gross annual income, we're talking about commercial or industrial property. Okay. Good? All right. So here's an example. It says sales price divided by rental income is gross rent multiplier. For example, if a home recently sold for $200,000 and its monthly rental income was $1,400, the GRM for the property would be computed in the following way. 200, so sales price, divided by rental income equals GRM. So sales price divided by how much money comes in every month gives you the GRM. Why is it important to figure out the GRM, guys? For residential properties especially, you might need the GRM to figure out how much rent we can get from this property. For instance, we're going to compare several properties in the area. Rental income times the GRM, once we figure it out, is the estimated market value. So if my property brings, let me see if I did that here. Right here. So the GRM that's in the book is this, right? If my property brings 1,500, is 1,500 more than what that property brought? Right? It is. It's $100 more than what this property brought, correct? So the GRM is 142.86. What does the M stand for? Multiplier. So once we figure out that the average or the common denominator of these properties is 142.86 of all the properties in the area, now we know how much the value is going to be. 142 times the 1,500, my house is worth 214,000. Isn't this more than this one? $14,000 more. Why? Because it also brings $100 more than that one. You guys got it? It's worth more because it brings more income. Okay? Good? I think a question is coming. I knew it. I was just waiting for the question. Go ahead. Take your time typing, okay? Take your time. Oh, go back to the example. Hey, Talia, when you came here, you didn't bring me anything. You're fired. You want me to zoom in? That's why. Okay. So hold on. This is what it is. Can you see it? 200,000 divided by 1,400. It's the same thing that was in the book, right? And this is because we compared property A, B, and C and what they sold for, and the common GRM was roughly 142.86. Okay? Because GRM is gross rent multiplier, that means we're going to multiply this number by whatever my property brings to determine the value. So right after GRM, this is what you have. It's very similar to the cap rate. Very similar to cap rate. Really good ice cream. Nastos is perfect. 1,500 is, it's my rental income for this property. Okay. Guys, let me show you this. These are comps. Once we figure out the average value, the common denominator between all these comps, we're going to apply to the subject property, which is my property in this case. That's why it says, sorry, my rental income, my property's rental income. So that's where the 1,500 comes from. Okay? We're just relating so Talia, we're just relating all right. Let's put it this way. If you go in a certain area, like let's say here in Newark, right? It's safe to assume that every 2-bedroom property will have a very similar rental income, right? A two-bedroom property will go for $2,000, let's say. Guess what? You go to the property next door, and now it's vacant, and they want to rent. How much are they going to charge? Around $2,000. Now, if it's a property that's worth more, maybe you can charge a little bit more. How do we figure that out? We just reverse this. Okay? Simple. So the GRM determines the value. So if you were to let's say you're trying to figure out the rentals. How much is the rental? Instead of multiplying, you would divide the sales price by the GRM. Okay? Good. GRI is gross rental income. Yep. And by the way, the only reason why I put GRIs and SPs and all that is just so I don't write the whole thing. But SP is sales price. So as I'm reading, I tell you, sales price, gross rental income. Okay? Like here, PGI. You're not going to see PGI in the state exam. But I told you this is the potential gross income. So this is just me, just trying. Yeah, Heather. I can't with you. Seriously. So EGI, NOI, all that stuff. Yes. Just like purchase price. Anyway, back to the book. This is some examples of how to get to the NOI. So here you go, potential gross annual income. So PGI, right? Then income from other sources. We take that, in this case, 4% is the loss. Then the EGI, the effective gross income, is 58,000. Okay? What do you mean standard? That number, the 142.86? That's not a standard. It's easy. This property sold for 300,000, right? the rental income on this property was $1,800. What am I doing? 300,000 divided. In this case, is 166.66. I'm going to round to 6.7. This is the gross rent multiplier. So now if my property brings 1,200, my property, which is next door, right? Because it has to be comp, so it has to be in the same area, right? What am I going to do? I'm going to multiply this by 166.67. How much is this property worth? Times 200,000. Does that make sense? So the GRM is not a standard, is this property brings 300,000. Sold for 300,000, property A, B, or C, or whatever we're comping, right? But it brought a rental income of 1,800. 300,000 divided by 1,800 is 166.67. That's the gross rent multiplier. That means that properties in the area, if we're trying to figure out the value of those properties, we need to figure out what is the rental income. Okay? But gross, not net in this case. Gross. In this case, the property we're trying to compare, let's say we're trying to sell this property, we're trying to figure out its value, brings 1,200. If it brings less money, then most likely it's worth less than that one, correct? So let's apply the GRM right there. 1,200 times the GRM, this property is worth $200,000, not 1 cent more. So that's what we use the GRM for. In case there's not enough sales, for instance, we need to get a little bit more creative, right? So we might use the cost approach. If it's a brand new property, we use the cost approach versus comps. So that's what we will go for. I think I just explained, Stephen. So it depends. We don't use this for income property. We use this as a supplement for other types of properties. Okay, so if it's a residential property and you're trying to figure out comps and you don't have enough sales, let's try to use 1 sale, 2 sales, and then let's look at these rentals. It will help you determine the value. Okay, this is like an add-on, that's all. So Heather just wrote, those numbers are coming from comps in the area, just like I was just saying, and then taking that GRM times Bruno's rent. That was my rent, 1,200. Steven, GRM is what the okay, I just explained that one. And Daphne, GRM like the cap rate. It operates similar to the cap rate. You can think of it as the cap rate because once we reach the cap rate, we multiply by our income, determine the value. Here, once you reach the GRM, then you multiply by our income, it brings the value. So in that sense, yes, similar to cap rate, absolutely. All right, guys? You see why I didn't want to do this yesterday at night as a ending? Linda, are you going to fall asleep? Why are you laying down? Get up. People get too comfortable. I don't understand how people can get so comfortable. Unbelievable. All right. Next. By the way, Nicole, you're always welcome here. Your mom, not so much, but you're always welcome here, okay? As many times as you want, show up, you're good. All right, remember, guys, I told you that you can have different approaches to value, right? We can use the income, we could use the cost approach, or we can use the sales comparison approach, right? We can use different approaches. And some are more applicable for a particular type of property than others. So what we're saying here is we're going to then reconcile the values that we found, reconcile all these different analyses, bundle into one, and create the report based on all the information that we found. Okay, so if one says it's 200, but then we look at the other approach and says 213, should we consider a third approach, or is one more applicable for this type of property than the other one? You see what I'm saying? So for you guys, you have to know that most likely we're not using any of these methods other than the cap rate or the sales comparison. So we don't do the cost approach most of the times. And if we do the cap rate, it's for apartment buildings. And unless you are in the commercial field, I don't see you doing it. Okay, so most likely become the pro at the comps, because that's what you're going to do most of the times. Okay, for state exam, you need to know all these, because once you see an appraisal report and you look at it, like, how did this person come up with these values? You now have an opportunity to dispute because you know how this works. You guys got it? That's how we're gonna end this chapter in a little bit, is your opportunity to dispute as a broker. You're not the broker, I got it, but you're the agent for the broker, therefore you're able to run these reports. Okay? Meredith, I'm sorry, can't share, you're too far away. I think this is the only time I'm loving this this distance thing. I don't have to share anything now. Anyway. Appraising. It says not all estimates of value, real estate value made by professional appraisers. We usually or often also make our own appraisals. We talked about that. Those are the comps. We were just talking about it, right? And then it says that appraisals are done for various reasons. Appraisals are done for various reasons. It could be for estate purposes, divorce proceedings, financing, taxation, relocation, condemnation, insurance, damage loss, feasibility. These are all different reasons. Thanks, Stephen. These are all different reasons why you would need an appraisal. Okay? And of course, the values are different from appraisal to appraisal depending on the purpose. If it's for tax purposes, taxation, you guys know that we're trying to figure out the assessed value of a property and dispute the taxes of the property, right? So it's different. For insurance, they use the replacement cost. So it's not the true sale value, it's the how much does it cost to replace value. Now, the next thing we got is fee appraiser. Need to remember, every time you see the word fee appraiser, is independent. That means you pay for the appraisal. A staff appraiser is in-house. That's what you need to remember. In-house, meaning hired by the company. Not by you as a buyer or as a seller, but hired by the company as a mortgage company. And this, in today's world, the way things are, in the current mortgage market world, most likely it will always be a staff appraiser. Most mortgage companies, 99.9% right now, they hire their own appraisal firm to conduct appraisals. Okay? Can you order an independent appraisal to figure out if the property's value is this or that or whatever? Can you? Yes. These are now called fee appraisers. You got it? That's the difference between these two. The appraisal process, guys, I already went over this before. It considers two types of classes, which is general data, so neighborhoods and stuff. We talked about this yesterday. Economic influences, governmental influences, and so on. And also specific data, which is the property, specific to the property. They have to be similar properties. We don't compare an apartment building to a warehouse, right? So specific data will be specific to that type of property. General data is what's happening in this market geographically, okay? Or even demographics and all that stuff. Next page, figure 16.1, we have the appraisal process. Now, the only reason why I'm putting arrows here is very simple. You guys should review the appraisal process, which is pretty much a summary of everything we've been through. we have to state the problem. Like, why are we doing this? List the data that's needed and the sources, what type of information we're going to pull and where we're pulling it from. So now we gather the general data, specific data, and the data required for each approach. So sales data approach, cost data approach, income and expense approach, if applicable. We determine the highest and best use. Do you guys remember this from yesterday? Highest and best use? Is a parking lot the best thing we can do with land? No, so that's not the highest and best use. So this is very important. Is the current property being used at its highest and best use? If yes, great. If no, we adjust the values based on that. Estimate land value. Remember, in certain approaches, land is calculated separately from the building, like the cost approach. The value by each of these, we then reconcile the values to get the final value estimate, and we create a report. Okay? So these are the steps, very easy to understand. It's like a summary of everything we've been through. And the report itself should identify, I have it bullet points marked here, but it should identify everything we just went through. Like, why are we doing this? What is the property that's being appraised? The value to be estimated, the process that you use or processes that you've used, and so on. There's one other additional thing that needs to be added, which is this. At the end, there must be a signed certification, right, of the uniform standards of the professional appraisal practice, a signed certification by the appraiser that says, hey, it's pretty much your resume. I've been an appraiser for 20 years. I have experience in both residential and commercial and whatever, and I have a general license or I have a certificate, whatever it is your license, everything goes in that summary, and then at the end, to the best of my knowledge, this is the most accurate report ever in the world of reports. That's what it is. It's a certification. Okay? But it might be a question, a report must include all these, as well as, or including, signed certification or whatever. If there's a question. That's why I always keep this one here. I've been keeping this for years because this question has popped a couple times. So, right there. The profession of appraising. I want you guys to scroll to the middle of that page, or that segment. And it says, New Jersey requires, so this is mandatory, that appraisals performed as part of a federally related transaction comply with state standards and be performed by a state licensed or state certified appraiser. There's a difference. I'm going to show you in a little bit. There's a difference between state licensed and state certified. But you guys remember I told you that we can dispute those appraisals? You remember that? Okay. So that's what it says here. All appraisals must be done by an appraiser, but there's an exception to broker's price opinion, or BPO. Broker's price opinion, or BPO, is acceptable to a lender. So we dispute when there's a mortgage, we're not giving a BPO to the buyer or the seller, we're giving the BPO to the lender to say, hey, Bank of America, your appraiser is wrong. That's pretty much what we're saying, okay? It has to include, this is the third time that we're saying this, it has to include a statement that this is not the same, your BPO is not the same as a certified appraisal. Okay? Repeating again, all real estate appraisals must be done by a licensed or certified real estate appraiser, and the only exceptions, again, the only exceptions are for CMAs, comps provided to sellers or buyers, or BPOs provided or ordered by lenders. Okay, these are the only exceptions. Meredith, how do we dispute an appraisal report? Well, by providing our own comps and a statement, our own statement saying, hey, based on market experience, this is what I deal with, is this market. We believe that your appraiser came $20, $30, $40, $50,000 below the true value. So we're going to make a statement to the bank that makes the bank hire another appraiser to come estimate the property. Sometimes they take our comps, right? We take our comps, the bank takes our comps, and that's it. Once we do the BPO, that's it. Sometimes they'll order another appraisal from another third party, completely independent, to come and make sure that the numbers were correct. Okay? It's also an additional source of income, guys, if you want. Additional source of income. BPOs could be anywhere between $75 to $300, $400. You make 2 or 3 of these a day, and boom, you make an extra amount of money right there. There you go, Chad. Yep. And one good resource for that is probate, bankruptcy, divorce. Okay, so deal with divorce attorneys, deal with bankruptcy attorneys, or probate attorneys. So why? Because usually they need to get rid of something quick, right? And they need to have a market expert, which could also eventually be the listing agent. You never know. But that's one of the 3 people you never want to meet, except in these circumstances. But it's a great source of money. So until not too long ago, so like 2-3 years ago, I was doing BPOs for a bankruptcy attorney. He would send me requests, Bruno, do me a BPO for property such and such. And he was an external BPO most of the times, and we would charge $75 just for, hey, let me run comps and make my statements. That was it. If additional information was needed, like an internal BPO, then we could charge more than that. But if it's external, it's just like doing regular comps almost. Okay? Can you sell houses being an appraiser? Gil, you can have all your licenses. I just don't think you want to go through this. This is for your internship. This is to get first-class appraiser. Second-class appraiser. And the bachelor's, you need it as well. And then to be the pro and all that stuff, forget it. It's just a lot of headaches. I don't think it's worth it. Not right now. Focus on getting into real estate, and once you're really good at it, you have your team working on it, and you can just sit back, relax, and have nothing else to do, then try this if you want. Okay? You guys good? Any questions regarding chapter 16 or this portion of chapter 16? No? All right. It's 6:51. We're going to go into a quick break so I can swallow this ice cream. And too honest, right? No, just a quick break, quick reset, 4 minutes, 6:55, we're back, okay? And then I'll try to finish this chapter if we can. The other chapter is really short and almost insignificant. So if not today, it will be tomorrow with chapter 19, all right? So quick 5 minutes, be right back.